Hello and welcome to the Taylor Seminars, where we talk about how Taylor Swift turns life into poetry. I'm Hannah here with my co host Exquisite, and we are here a
I am.
fortnight since the album dropped, the Tortured Poets Department. Exquisite, how are you feeling?
Um, she put narcotics into all of her songs. As everyone knows, I was on my little Tay break and I've overdosed every day. Like,
Yes,
it's been
that
a
is
problem.
accurate.
I, I just woke up, I wake up crying thinking about a lyric. Um, it just depends on what it is. Every new day, new song unlocks itself for me.
I love that.
And I
And that's exactly what we're doing today. We are unlocking a song. We are starting our track by track analysis of the 31 tracks of the Tortured Poets Department. And today we are starting with Fortnight featuring Post
Fortnite.
Malone.
For a fortnight there, we were together.
Yeah,
Exactly. Don't copyright
yeah. We don't have the rights to anything, so we got to do our own acapella version. But let's just talk a little bit about the background of the song
Yeah.
before we get into the lyrics. So this is her first lead single that's a collab since Me from Lover. Um, it went number one on the charts this past
Me never did.
yeah, me never did. It went from 99 to 2, but yes, this one started at the top, is I think predicted to go at least another week.
Yeah.
And we have, and it's the first, I think, one that starts an album with a collab, right? I don't think she's ever done that before.
Yeah, I don't think she's done that before. She doesn't start her albums with other people. She broke the status quo here.
Yeah, and I think for good reason. Why don't
I
you,
think for good as
yeah, like
well.
what, well, tell me what you think. What do you think about the song?
I will say the thing about Fortnite is it's kind of a grower because here's the thing. When I was going through the album, because there's so many songs, I had already forgotten what it sounded like by the time I got to the manuscript at 3 in the morning, um, at 3 a.m. on the 19th. So I had to go back. And when I listened the second time, I was like, I didn't understand first why we were starting. It was like this very down tempo, like music. And I hadn't, all the lyrics hadn't like sunk in for me just yet. But by my third listen, I was like, oh, wait. I completely understand why she started this one. And it was just like you had said, like 3 weeks ago, where you're like, I think Fortnite will be our intro to everything. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So what do you think? What did you think?
I'm not gonna lie, this song stumped me for a long time. I had my little notebook. I was like,
Hmm.
"What is this song about?" Like question mark, question mark, question mark. And I think it was definitely on purpose. Like we know she girl can write a song that's clear as crystal. But
Uh-huh.
this one, immediately from track one, she was being very purposefully vague, mixing whether we've talked about it in the last podcast, mixing muses, mixing metaphors even, and really showing us that this isn't going to be your typical album. Like you said, no,
Yeah.
we've never had a track like this, a collab start an album. This is already her being like, this is different. Like it's you,
And
some
she
things are the
also
same,
pulled
but not a lot.
Malone into the female role. She usually puts her, Taylor has her like her thing where she doesn't give women their own verses.
Yes.
The little jokey joke between us, we can make that joke. Um, she made Post Malone do that, even though he got
The
he was
outro.
allowed to speak, but he was supporting. He was
Yes.
her supporting, not a co-star.
Yeah,
He was
definitely.
not the lead.
Yeah, Taylor is the main character here, very clearly.
Hmm. I also just want to say on the title, we know Fortnite literally means 2 weeks. Um, so there is that. But I also want to point out that just the term fortnight is more used in England than it is in the US. It's
Right.
not something that you'll come across in the US as much. It probably will be more now because Taylor has like gave it a jump start in the American lexicon, but it isn't something that Americans will use as often as I think Brits. And I think that's an interesting thing to point out.
Yeah. Love us some good, etymology,
Yeah,
diction.
just something fun.
Yeah, and we'll come back to that idea of what is what does the word fortnight actually mean and represent as we go through
Hmm.
the album. And yeah, I think uh, even the song, we'll get into this, but even the song structure, the way that it like verse, chorus, and things like
Yeah,
that, it's so different. The songwriting she's doing here, telling the story, is not your typical verse one, chorus, verse two, chorus, bridge, chorus.
even the like pronouns she's using are interesting. Like when she gets into the direct address that she does, it's like, well, who is the you? Who is X, Y, and Z? It's all very interesting.
Right? Do you want to start looking into the lyrics then?
Well, before we do that, like before we say that, like why do you think, and I'm gonna ask you this, and maybe we'll come back to it at the end, but why do you think this works as track one?
Oh, yeah, I think it's a really good intro into the rest of the album. It's got
Hmm.
a beautiful Jack production that sets
Hmm.
the scene. It is slow. I think I heard somewhere it's like 80 BPM, which is pretty slow, but it has this quality of explanation, not explanation, but like world building, right? You don't get all the
Yeah.
answers. You don't get
He's
the
setting the atmosphere even.
exactly. It's a very atmospheric song where you are placed. Even the music video, I think, does that too. Like it's black and white. It's very
Mhm.
gray. It's very rainy and kind of icky. And there's a mental asylum
Mhm.
literally in the music
Yeah.
video. And I think in that way, I think that even that sense of confusion that I felt from the first song, being like, "What is the
Yeah.
song about?" I think makes me want to figure it out, as in I want to hear more of the album. I want to know, like, who is this person, even the singer, the speaker, right? Like, is this even Taylor in a sense? Like, who is this person? What are they thinking?
Exactly. Who is this? What are they thinking? And I also just think it's interesting the way that it picks up where Midnight's ends. It's the 14th night now.
Let's
So
talk about
haha.
it.
Um, so, and what does Fortnite mean? 14 days, 2 weeks. So it picks up where Midnight's ends. But also the last thing we got from Midnight, so When You're Losing Me, the last thing that was on CDs was Hits Different. And it kind of picks up there
Right,
because Hits Different, the singer hears a key in the door and she goes, "Have they come to take me away?
right.
Or is it you?" Um, and we know Hits Different was written before Taylor's life had a moment of upheaval,
Yes,
a pure upheaval. So we know that's when Hits Different happened. She's like, "It's you came back, blah 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 blah." Do we know the exact date Hits Different was written? I don't think
I don't think
so.
so.
Or maybe if I got the credits. Oh, we know it was, but it's irrelevant because we know in Hits Different, she was like, "I'm going crazy because I don't know if you're leaving me, if you're going to stay. Like, I be able to get over you?" All of that's important to, I think, to unlocking Fortnite, because Fortnite can stand on its own. But when you have the backing of Hits Different, where she's like, "I used to be able to switch up these kins. I used to not care, but now I'm crying in the bars
Throwing up.
and in the back of the bars, throwing up everywhere because it's different. Like this, there's something about this heartbreak that is entirely different. And that leads us right into the first lines of Fortnite. If you want to read those first lines, Hannah.
Sure, yeah, let me read that. I was supposed to be sent away, but they forgot to come and get me. I was a functioning alcoholic till nobody noticed my new aesthetic. All of this to say, I hope you're okay, but you're the reason. And no one here is to blame, but what about your quiet treason? So
Which
ominous.
is, yeah. Um, just from those first lines, I think it's kind of easy to, I will not say easy. Let me not say that. I think it is like I was supposed to be sent away, and from music video we know she means like taken away to a hospital or an asylum or something. But they never they didn't come and get her from the house. So she was still waiting in the house,
Yep.
basically. Perhaps even in the house on the heath. Who knows? Anyway. Um
So Long London, track 5.
yeah. Yeah. But not even they never came. They just forgot. I think that is the use of the word forgot is interesting.
Hmm. No, I think
And
this narrator, right? If you look closely, right? Like she's not only she's forgotten, she's an
mhm.
alcoholic, and she's unnoticed, right? Like no, like these are this is such strange uh, circumstance that this narrator's found herself in.
Yeah. And I think it's also important that we're in the we're in a for like the verbs we're in a past tense, so she was supposed to, they forgot, and she used to be a functioning alcoholic, till nobody noticed she had changed. She was functioning alcoholic till nobody noticed that she had changed her the way she was going.
Hmm.
um And then we get this, we switch to the present tense of all this to say, not to, it's not said. It's like all this for me to currently say, I hope you're doing fine, but you're the reason.
That thing in the past happened.
Yeah, you're the reason I'm supposed to be sent away. And then I think it's interesting to have this like these two lines on top of the, but you're the reason and no one's here to blame. So it's like, can't exactly lay this blame out, but I
Hmm.
can, because what about what you did that hurt us?
Right. So
Like there's a quiet.
yeah. So treason is a type of betrayal, and especially it's especially used to like overthrow a government, or
Mhm.
something like that. But yeah, there's.
Typically season
Sorry, say
it
that again.
first start with like kingdoms.
Oh yes, yes. Even like the American colonists, they were treasonous, right? That's what
Yeah,
they would have been,
yeah,
arrested for.
not quite treasonous,
That
but
was not.
treasonous enough.
Yeah, so that's true. The American Revolution was a loud treason, but a quiet treason is like, um,
It's like sneaking around,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah, yeah, or like making deals behind people's backs, things like that.
Mhm.
And so, uh, that's the beginning
Yeah,
of the song. Do you want to do the
it's really
next
interesting.
section?
Yeah, I'll read the next section. And for a fortnight, there we were forever. Run into you sometimes, ask about the weather. Now you're in my backyard, turned into good neighbors. Your wife waters flowers. I want to kill her. So,
No, when I heard that I want to kill her
for
line,
me,
I like uncomfortably giggled. I
I
was
know.
like,
I I literally gasped. I was like, what is she? First of all, this is one of those songs where Taylor's being funny in her weird little humorous way that she
yes,
constantly is. Especially the delivery of I want to kill her in the song. Your wife waters flowers. I want to kill her. Like she's funny.
it's so yeah, like to have it in that same cadence of like da 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 da, right? It's very like almost playful in a way, right? But then to have that juxtaposition
It's
of
super
like
sweet.
wanting to off somebody.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, so like that first line, for a fortnight there, we were forever. So for this moment in time, this little forever they had, that they were going to be constantly. It was them. It was them too.
Yeah,
Like they were.
and it's a paradox,
They were
right? You
connected.
can't be
Yeah,
forever if it's only a fortnight.
exactly. She's working in this paradox, which she's doing all over the album, which
Yes.
you'll realize. Um, but she is like they are intertwined, and in those 2 weeks, that small, like 2 weeks can seem like a long time when you're waiting for something, but it's immediately over. Like it's so short.
So short.
But she's like, whoever the you is, she's like, we were to forever in that fortnight. And now she goes into, I like to say, I would call this imagining. She's doing some imagining here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because she goes, I run into you sometimes. So she's like, sometimes I see them, whoever I thought I was going to spend forever with, I see them and I'm asking them about the weather, basically making small talk.
Right.
She's like, how are you doing? And turns out they live next to each other because she's like, now you're in my backyard. turned into good neighbors. So we live next to each other. And
Right.
you have the most beautiful wife. She's sweet. She's watering flowers.
Yep.
And our speaker is mad about this, that this person has a wonderful wife and probably a wonderful life because they're good
Yep.
neighbors.
Yep.
Probably neighbors that you can knock on the door and borrow sugar or something. And it pisses her off. She wants to kill somebody
Yeah.
because she wants to kill the wife because
It's
she's
no,
mad.
it's yeah,
In this future, she's mad.
right, because she sees this past lover and hates their new life because um,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like, well, we'll see coming up very soon, right? That her life isn't perfect, but sees that they've moved on, they're fine, right? And this
Mm-hmm.
image makes her want to, you know, do something drastic, and it's just she is so unhappy, right?
Yeah.
We've like, and then do you want me to read the next one?
Yeah, you can read the next one.
All right, so
And the
right,
next
so
part.
let's feel this misery, right? All my mornings are Mondays stuck in an endless February. I took the miracle move on drug. The effects were temporary. And I love you, it's ruining my life. I love you, it's ruining my life. I touched you for only a fortnight. I touched you, but I touched you. So immediately, my little AP English mind looks at all these M's that just like
Mm-hmm.
permeate. The more
Yeah.
my mornings, Mondays, a miracle move on drug. The effects were temporary. Um,
All of that assonance is just really interesting with
yeah,
the
yeah,
ends.
yeah, and I think it adds to like that dreariness of
But
right, like, and gosh,
and then we know Mondays are dreary. We know Februarys are also these two dreary things. And she's like, my mornings are just dreary.
And I don't know, but there is a famous, not famous, well, I don't know, but a lover lyric. I want your dreary Mondays, in the song
Wrap
Paper
your
Rings, and so we do
face.
have,
Yeah,
right?
we have some connections.
Yeah, so Mondays are dreary. Even Taylor in the past has referenced that, and yes, Februarys tend to be like short, the
Februarys
last
are like
gasp of winter.
exactly. It's like winter dying out. There's no more holidays.
Yeah,
Like we're past the fun part of winter.
and
Um,
Endless February is also, I think, famous because of like the film Groundhog Day, and it's this
yeah.
movie about a man who just has to repeat the same day over and over again, and
And
that's
you're stuck
February.
in this
Yeah,
dreary cycle. And that first line, literally, of she's so dreary and she's so worn down, and it makes you feel like you understand why the very next line she's like, I took a drug.
yeah, yeah. So in the music video, you see her taking that pill, but
Mm.
and so yeah, she tried to take some kind of medicine, another M, medicine to relieve her pain, um, but it didn't work. I mean, it worked a little.
The
It's
effects are too.
what'd you say?
And
Sorry, I couldn't
also
hear you.
I would like. Oh, I said the effects were
Oh yeah,
temporary.
yeah, yeah,
The lyric, but I think it's also it's. I think the usage of drug not only does the fact that it works better than maybe medicine. Well, of course, it works better in the song than medicine, but drug to me is interesting because we all know drugs have like magnificent highs, but then the lows are really, really, really low.
yeah,
So in this line, she literally says, "I tried to, I tried to get love quick scheme, and it came crashing down."
yeah,
She tried to move on with just a quick, fast. She wasn't actually confronting anything, um, and the effects of that were temporary and probably soul crushing because literally the next line it's ruining my life.
yeah,
And she was like, I love you. I had to move. I take this drug and it's ruining my life.
yep. And then
And
even the touch, right? Like, and then
yeah,
she hasn't moved on. The touch still lingers in her mind too, right? Even though I
yeah,
touched you this temporary fortnight time, um, it's still like I wake with your memory over me, right? That's a real lasting legacy. Like it's this idea of
mhm,
it's not going away. And she repeats the touching 3 times, right? Which we've talked
yeah.
about
She said,
before about like,
I touched you, I touched you. And then for me, the the key here, like we have the for only a fortnight. So she's like, I only touched you for 2 weeks, yet you ruined, like you destroyed me because I touched you just for those that little itty bitty time. I think the use of the word fortnight, even though like it's 2 weeks, it's not a literal 2 weeks. She just
Right.
means it was a small but enough time to like wreck her. But the thing that's interesting here is the but I touched you. So it's like I touched you, but she's like, but I got to touch you to me. Like it reads, but I touched you.
Yeah.
Like I got to do that as well.
Yeah, to me it seems like to but I touched you means like this was real, wasn't it? Like you weren't a
Mhm.
ghost, you weren't a phantom.
Exactly. Like I could feel you.
Yeah, this was something that meant so much to me, and and that's why either I can't move on or that's why it hurts so much. Like it's trying to explain to herself like why I'm feeling all of this pain and misery right now.
Yeah. And I think it's also important that as of right now, this is before Post Malone comes in, we don't get anyone touching her back. It's I touched you. I did this.
Yeah.
I touched you. Okay. And so
We're
then we
gonna
go,
we're gonna come back to the I in many songs
I
on this
I
album.
know there's a lot of there's a lot of claiming of agency in this album, which one, if you listened last week and you know I was talking about that like sinister predation theme,
Yes.
the active eye in a lot of these songs is so important to someone who maybe feels like she didn't get a lot of agency or that she was preyed upon. So the active eye is super important in all of these. I will say Fortnite is also kind of sinister in itself. Like there's a sinister vibe that anyway.
No. I think we can dwell on this a little bit because yeah, even the music video it's
Yeah.
disturbing, right? Like it's got this
Hmm.
weird, like disturbing as in it's not a happy thing. Like it's in an
It is not.
asylum. It's she literally gets like electric psychotherapy, right? She um is uh right, like there are tender, I guess, moments, parts of, but
Yeah.
overall like it's a dreary, scary place, and I think that's what she was
Not
feeling.
comforting.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah. And so then we get this verse of we get to repeat it in for a fortnight there we were forever. Run into you sometimes, ask about the weather. Now you're in my backyard, turned into good neighbors. Your wife waters flowers. I want to kill her. But then it switches here. It switches, and I think this is important. It goes, and for a fortnight, there we were together. Run into you sometimes, comment on my sweater. Now you're at the mailbox, turned into good neighbors. My husband is cheating. I want to kill him.
Oof.
So now we get a little bit about our speaker. We didn't know a lot about her, but now we do. We know at least that she's also married.
Right.
She wears sweaters, and yes, they're neighbors. And this person, the you she's talking about, um, he's good. Like he'll comments on her sweater, so it's probably a good compliment. Probably paying her a compliment. Um, yeah. So she was like, for the short amount of time we were together, we weren't just forever. It was like us. We
Yeah.
were together.
Yeah.
And now when I see you, you tell me I look nice in my sweater, and
Mm-hmm.
good neighbors, because you're not just in my backyard. You're at the mailbox. Like I see you at the mailbox.
Yeah, often.
Invite you to the house. Um, but it's important to know that not only is our speaker married, she has a bad husband. So in this future that is being imagined,
Yeah, in this
uh,
scenario.
in this scenario, her ex-lover who has driven her crazy and ruined her life with not being able to have the love found someone that and she's a good someone.
Yeah.
But the speaker found someone who is not.
Yeah.
Uh,
In a
she wants to
loveless
marry her.
marriage.
A loveless marriage.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
and sorry, just to go back, I'm the one who gave this lyric sheet to Exquisite, and I just realized there's a typo. In the earlier, it should have been your wife bought us flowers, but we said waters
Is
both
it?
times. I think so.
Oh yeah.
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 So in any case, I think if for
It's
the
all
your
about the wife. The wife is sweet.
yeah, right. If she bought flowers, maybe like she just moved in. It's like, welcome to the neighborhood. Here's some flowers, and then
I feel like the
waters.
wife probably knows she's an ex.
it's possible, and like,
Or does she?
but she's like, it's fine, like, oh my gosh, like, ha ha ha. And then later she waters flowers, she takes care of her house is perfect, her life is perfect, her right. So this comparison the speaker has to her ex's uh, partner is it's driving her mad. And again, especially when you look into her own home, husband is cheating. Husband,
Yeah.
maybe her house is a mess. Like she has the house, but there's weeds in the yard, right? Like there's, the lawnmower hasn't worked in months.
Yeah. Um, and I also just want to point out this is where we start getting Post Malone a little stronger.
Yes.
Like before he was underneath like Endless February and Affected Temporary, but now we get him just a little bit stronger for the We Were Together. Like we were forever, we were together. We're getting the backing vocals of the man
Yeah.
or turned into good neighbors. Like they're like, yeah, we're good neighbors now.
Yeah, we're
We were
starting to
together.
see his voice kind of permeate the song, and
That
we did talk about this a little bit last week, but where we talked about how these songs are very Americana, and I think
mhm.
this, especially this stanza, we see a lot of this, uh, you know, at the meeting at the mailbox by the white picket
Mhm.
fence, like at the garden. Like I feel like this is here. It'll come again more into in the outro, but we're already seeing,
We're seeing images of Americana,
yeah,
which I think is very interesting for the fact that the song's called Fortnight. She's using Fortnite, which is kind of again feels a little more British. Um, but now she's like, I'm running into you. You're in America. I'm in America. We live next door to each other with our white picket fences. He probably has 2.5 kids. And I'm like, WPF. Um, and it's pissing our singer off by a lot.
yeah.
So then
Oh,
we get this.
before we
Oh
go
yeah.
on, I do think one of my friends tweeted this. I'm trying to find it, but I think it was my friend Nacho who was like, "It's funny that the juxtaposition of like your wife waters flowers, I want to kill her, and then my husband is cheating, I want to kill him." Like that. Those are the two things that like
Hmm.
induce such rage, like the same amount of rage, right? Like you would think your husband cheating would be that's the bigger one, but the comedy comes in that even her watering the flowers is the same rage-inducing image, and it
And
goes to show, yeah, like her mindset.
it almost feels like she's like, the cheating is not the problem. The problem is he's my husband and you're wife. That
Yeah,
we're not together. The cheating is happening or whatever. The cheating is happening or whatever. LOL. I'm not going to get into that. But it's the fact that he's my husband and you're not.
yeah, no, and so I think, and but I will say though that cheating is a scary thought. I will say. I don't know.
Mhm.
Maybe we'll talk about that more in other songs.
Maybe we'll touch that in another
Yeah,
song.
but yeah,
Maybe
it'll be.
we won't even get into that. And the cheating was just on top of it all.
Yes.
It's just the fact that I have a husband. It could be my husband is literally doing anything. I want to kill him
Yeah.
because yeah. So then we get the refrain again of I love you, it's ruining my life. I love you, it's ruining my life. I touched you for only a fortnight. I love you, it's ruining my life. She said again. And this is we don't have the I don't think we have the but I touched you again on this one.
Ooh. Now that I messed up that one lyric,
No, there's no but.
I'm gonna grab my lyric book.
I went through and looked and there is no but again. The but I touched you does not come back.
Sorry, say that again.
And the but I touched you does not come back.
Oh,
Which
that's
I think is
fascinating.
interesting. That feels purposeful.
Yeah, because she could slide that in really easily, but
Yeah, it feels purposeful. She's like, I think it's probably because now she's like, I have a cheating husband and your wife is all gentle and sweet. It doesn't even matter that I got to touch you once. It's ruining my life that I touched you at all. Like, it doesn't even matter that I was like, I touched you. Like, now it sucks.
yeah,
But
because I think before when we talked about it meant something. Like the "but I touched you" means this was real, this was good, and almost like a clinging on to. But now it's like I touched you, I touched you. She's like spiraling, and maybe in a way
that,
she's like, I'm gonna do something about it. Like or like I'm letting it go. There seems to be
yeah.
a different feeling that's coming out of the singer.
And we also have Post Malone going back and forth with her too.
Yes.
Like she's like, I love you, it's ruining my life. And then you have Post Malone who's like, I loved you, it's ruining my life. Like she's imagining that this partner, and the fact that she has Post Malone, I think Post Malone is doing an interesting thing because it's the only other male voice, the only male voice on the album.
Yes.
The only time she wants to hear from a man on this album is in the man that she's imagined into her head. She's fathomed him into being. She's like formed him. And I think it's interesting that Post Malone is not in the beginning because she hasn't imagined him into the song yet. And then
Yeah.
after she takes the miracle move on drug, she imagines a man into the song. Um, so they're going back and forth now. And there's no like, but at least we touched each other. They're just both like, you ruined my life. It's ruining, not even ruined. Like, it's not past tense. It's you're
Mm-hmm.
ruining. You're
Mm-hmm.
actively, the fact that I touched you is actively ruining my life. The fact that I loved you is still actively ruining my life.
Ugh. It's sad, but it's good. All right. Do you want
Yeah.
me to read that
Um,
outro?
yes.
Thought of calling ya, but you won't pick up. Another fortnight lost in America. Move to Florida, buy the car you want, but it won't start up till you touch, touch, touch me. Thought of calling ya, but you won't pick up. Another fortnight lost in America. Move to Florida, buy the car you want, but it won't start up till I touch, touch, touch you.
I think it's so interesting that we finally get a touch me. Um, it was always like this act of like, I touched you. But
Yeah.
yeah, so for me, the thought of calling you, but you won't pick up, and that is sung, that first one, it's sung by Post Malone.
Correct.
We have in the outro, we have this man she imagined who has this beautiful wife, and he's like, I thought of calling you, but you won't pick up, as in I know you're not going to pick up. And it would just be in that line, another fortnight lost in America, that it takes us back to that fortnight that those two were together. He's like, you won't pick up anyway. That time, that little 2 week that we spent connected to each other is lost. It's lost to
And this is
America.
what,
And he,
just to clarify, and this is not with the, is this,
yeah,
are you saying what this is with the,
the original. I think the original person is also who's singing at her, but like an imagined future version of them. So now this man she's imagining, she's like, he is like her imagined man. Her imaginary friend is like, I thought of calling you, but I knew you won't pick up. Or this
mm,
could even, like, I'm also willing to hear an argument for, and I'm also kind of making this argument for myself, where it's like, this is not even this is the actual man, perhaps. And he is like, because he's at the end, it's the outro. He's finally like a real man, because this is where Post Malone finally comes in really clearly. Um,
mm.
and he's like, I thought of calling you. Maybe this, like, if we connected to the beginning, and I'm about to, y'all just have to walk with
I'm
me,
walking.
Hannah.
I'm walking.
This is the I was supposed to be sent away, but they forgot to come and get me. I feel like this. I thought of calling you, but you won't pick up. So not that they forgot to come and get her, she wasn't gonna pick up.
Mm.
And so those 2 weeks they're lost because I knew you weren't gonna do this. Move to Florida, buy the car you want. This is also Post Malone says move to Florida. I said you're going to move to Florida, and you're gonna buy that car. Um, but it won't start up till you touch me. And then, like, Post Malone and Taylor are singing that together. But I think the act of it's both of them. He's like, you're gonna try and move on. Um, Perhaps the car is like the start of that American white picket fence family in
Mm-hmm.
Florida. South. He's like, but that dream of a family won't start up because until you are touching me, and you, until it's me, that dream is never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so hold on, let me say this in more concise terms. I think we're out of the daydream a bit of her imagining the future, and this is the person maybe that she was already thinking about, that she tried to move on from quickly, talking back to her now. She's like, I'm Post Malone is trying to like penetrate this future imagining she has, and he's just like, you were never gonna pick up the phone. You're gonna run away from me. We're gonna lose that little fortnight that we had forever. Um, and you're gonna try and buy that car you wanted, and it's just not going to work. And then we have Taylor who comes back and basically is like, move to Florida, buy the car you want, but it won't start up till I touch you. So she's like, I know this. I know. I know. I'm going to try and escape, and it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like maybe the touch is even like, even if the touch is just like until I think about what happened, until I touch that part of my mind of like that how you affected me and touch the ruined life, like I can't go on with my dreams. But that's just my
No, I know that. So let me do my spin on it. It's very, very
okay,
similar to
okay,
yours.
okay.
So,
I'm listening.
so I think, yeah, I think we have this kind of, yeah, like the puncturing of the daydream where
Yeah.
suddenly where we don't have that "but I touched you" anymore. It's the I touched you, I touched you. What am I gonna do now? She's this. The singer is at a crossroads, and then she gets this image in her head, whether it's a literal call or like a person like calling her, or a literal or a metaphorical voice in her head being like, I need to move on, otherwise I can't live like this. I need to try something new. I need to get out of here. Very getaway car.
Mhm.
We have the car here too, right? Like and whether it's with a new person, I think this,
Mhm.
right? Like she, maybe it started out as this imaginary person and then became a real person. Yeah, I do think it could be connected, like you said, to the quote unquote miracle move on drug person,
Yeah.
where she's like, I have to try. Like there's no other way that
Yeah.
I can survive. I don't want to be another Fortnight lost in America. I want to be new to, like starting up a car, right? Like jump, you have to jump the battery sometimes, right? But
Mhm.
there's this idea of trying to take some kind of action because this dreary, self-inflicted imagining that's so painful, like she has to get out of it somehow.
Yeah. I think that's also interesting. I'm really caught up in the two different endings of the but it won't start up line. She's like, but it won't start up until you touch me. And then it won't start up until I touch you.
Yeah.
And I do really I like I'm like he's finally telling her like your dreams aren't gonna start till you touch me. And she's acknowledging it. She's like, my dream car is not gonna start. My dream is gonna start till I touch you. And then oh also, this is to me is like that hint of Americana that's back. She's like, I will go back to America, specifically Florida, because
Mm.
we'll go back to the South. And the South is such a huge theme in this album in general,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is very interesting because when a lot of people think poets, I feel like American poets get overshadowed by like British
Well,
poets.
yes. I read a lot of British poets back in the day.
Yeah, I feel like people ignore our American poets for British ones. Um, but it's whatever. Americans have a lot of talent. I don't, whatever. Caw and then eagles preaching. The I bleed red, white, and blue. These colors don't run. Anyway, I think it's very interesting for her to pick Florida because it hints at a song to come later that we will
Correct.
talk about to Florida itself. And we know that song has somebody murdering a husband. LOL. Um,
Yes.
but I think it's interesting because when you Florida is seen like, oh my goodness, Florida is seen as a getaway for a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
because that's what Disney World is, and that's where all the beaches are.
People retire there.
Yeah, people go to Florida to retire. So there's a lot of myth making around Florida, and it's interesting how the song Florida kind of it kind of almost reverses that myth, but we're not there yet, so I'm not going to talk about that. That's just a tease. For
Love it.
whenever when we get to Florida, three exclamation points. But it's very interesting where she finally brings in like she grounds us. She's like, America in Florida,
Yeah.
like and when you think about like the landmarks made in the album, she also mentioned like she says so long to London. So we know those are like three important aspects of this album are Britishisms because Fortnight, um, America, and then specifically Florida.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you said about touch me versus touch you. I think
Yeah.
I really like that because we do know that later on in the album she's going to have a new lover and she's going to go through
Mm-hmm.
this epic manic mania and then
Mm-hmm.
the pits of despair. And it's this
Mm-hmm.
idea of like, yeah, it's already bringing that up within the album of like, hey, like
Yeah.
if I touch you, if you touch me, can this be magical? Can this be even
Yeah.
more magical
Yeah.
and beautiful than what she had with this former partner for that fortnight?
Yeah.
And it's funny because you know, zooming out a little bit, that former partner was a longer fortnight,
Yeah.
whereas the
Forever Fortnite.
right, whereas the more current one, I'm sorry if you hear my gardener, but whereas the newer one is a lot more, you know, closer to a fortnight.
Yeah. Also, I just want to not to like for us to just dwell in these final lines, but it is very interesting, apparent, a little confusing, but not really, to me that touch is not past tense at all.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Everything else is, well, except those lines, like lost in America, that's past tense. The fortnight was lost. He thought of calling her. He knows she will not pick up. She won't. Um, so it's like that's future-ish tense. It can be past or future, but I think that's future tense. He's like,
Yeah,
I thought
yeah,
of
because it's
calling.
like it's not you didn't pick up. It's
It's you won't pick up. He
yeah,
didn't even make the call. He didn't pick up the phone to call her
yeah,
because he just assumed it's important. There's an assumption being made here.
right,
He assumed that she's going to pick up the phone, but he
right,
doesn't even try. Um, which is interesting. He doesn't even try.
yeah,
He's actively ruining her life, but doesn't try to call her. Because he assumes that he knows her enough that she won't pick up the phone. Um, Move to Florida. So you will move to Florida and you'll buy the car you
future,
want. So future. But it won't start up. So future, it won't start up till you touch me present. You have to touch me in order for you to move on.
yeah,
So present tense here, and all the other touches were past tense. And then I love you, it's ruining my life, it's present and active. So like we're getting a gerund. Like it's
yeah,
currently ruining her life. And it's ruining to her life to the point where her car in Florida that she's gonna buy won't start up
mm-hmm,
because she's not touching the issue. She's not touching me, and she's like, and then again, there's that acknowledgement of like, I'm gonna move to Florida, and I know it's not gonna start up until I touch you in the present, literally until I deal with it, until I get like stop this miracle move on drugs, stop like things like it. I'm not gonna be able to go forward. And while I think this is such an important like overture to the album as a whole, because we do see like in the album the act of like running away, the act of like avoidance,
mm-hmm,
the in the acknowledgement of that avoidance, and the acknowledgement of like the effect that our singer, our speaker knows that it's currently happening, and she knows that some of it, and she says it, she's like, some of these, this poet acknowledges that some of this was self-inflicted,
correct,
um but she was in a place where she couldn't self-inflict harm. And she knows here that she's like, none of my dreams can go until I deal
yeah,
with what's happening. And we see this reckoning all throughout the album of her reckoning, especially towards the end when we get into like love of my life and her, but all that towards the end is finally like she's like, no more running. I'm gonna sit here with this and talk about it. And I do think the theme, we didn't talk about this but before, but there's a theme of like escaping, running, bolting, and running
okay.
to,
Hold that thought. So now that we've talked about through this,
yeah,
I want
yeah,
to I want to read what Taylor said about the album when
yes.
she did her little like intros to some of the songs she did. Um,
Mhm.
I'm not Taylor Swift, but I will do my best. This is a
Say about
song.
Fort-
This is a song that I think really exhibits a lot of the common themes that run throughout this album. One of which
Mhm.
being fatalism, longing, pining
Mhm.
away, lost dreams. I think that it's a very fatalistic album in that there are lots of dramatic lines about, you know, life or death. I love you. It's ruining my life. These are very
Mhm.
hyperbolic, dramatic things to say. but it's that kind of album. It's about a dramatic, artistic, tragic kind of take on loss and love and loss. And Fortnight, I've always imagined that it took place in this American town where the American dream you thought would happen to you didn't, right? You ended up not with the person that you loved, and now you have to just live with that every day, wondering what would have been, maybe seeing them out. And that's a pretty tragic concept, really. So I was just writing from that perspective.
Yeah, it's literally so like it's dreary. Especially for those of you who don't know, fatalism and fatalistic is this idea that it's the belief that all events are predetermined and therefore inevitable.
Right.
And we see literally all throughout the album, we see Taylor slash our singer and our speaker of the poems reckoning with fate and reckoning with what her like things that she maybe thought was fate. And she was like, it was always going to end. And she's like, well, this past thing, maybe that is like this romantic fate driven thing. And it's like, no. And then she's like, oh my goodness, everything is just going to end, and it's really dark. She's like, I can run away from it, it's still going to end up happening. And I think that clarifies the line, like the move to Florida, buy the car you want and won't start up, because she's like, it's fate for me to not be able to move on from this yet. It's very sad until she touches it and talks about it.
Yeah. I mean, so I've seen a lot of interpretations. Again, Taylor has made it sort of like it's clear who these songs are about, right? But we don't want to deny that she had very publicized relationships. I mean, we've said their names, Matthew and Joseph, on the previous episode. We don't have to run away from it.
We call them by their biblical names around here.
So that we know it's
calling a grown man Maddie. Sorry. You're 36.
Is that how old he is?
You're
so then, so when I first read this, I was texting Exquisite to be like, I don't get this song. What is going on? Like, I remember like crossing out and like trying to just be like, is this a lost love? Is this a current love? Is this a who love? And is a so. Why don't you kind of give me like where you kind of fall into like where the speaker is? And I know we definitely talked about, we don't have to go too specific. We can go as far as you want, but as you kind of put this into just the mind of Taylor and the mind of this album, like how would you describe it?
If I'm approaching writing this as a writer, if I'm Taylor Swift, first of all, if I'm Taylor Swift, there's a lot of things I would do. But anyway, if I'm Taylor
For
Swift,
Fortnight.
I'm preparing this album, and for me, the you is Joseph. If we're gonna do this fraternity testing, this was the beginning of, I think, her creating the mixture that she took a bunch of shots of, obviously.
Yes.
Before she was completely blending them up. She's imagining this future, obviously. She's imagining this suburban lifestyle, which she kind of railed against in Lavender Haze, if we remember this.
Yes.
This 1950s shit they want from me. But she imagines the 1950s, like the white 2.5 kids white picket fence.
Correct.
For Joe, and like he's gonna have a beautiful wife who probably never caused any problems. She just waters flowers. The perfect wife. And she had to take a miracle drug, who is Matthew. Matthew is the miracle move-on drug.
Maybe those M's mean something.
Yeah. And this, I think, coincides with how she refers to him in that poem that we went over last episode. Re-listen to that if you don't remember. It coincides with that really well for me, for him, especially because the act of it being miracle move on drug is like it happened really quickly, and the Matthew thing literally happened like a week after the news broke. So, yeah. Well, yeah. A plus B.
Yeah.
And it's important to know the effects were temporary. She's acknowledging it, and I think this is where that agency comes in. All the eyes. The eye took, as in she was not the drug was not forced down her throat. She did not have to take it.
Yeah.
But she took it. And the effects were temporary. It didn't work.
Yeah.
In fact, it probably was an act of ruining her life. And I think, and I was just thinking about this. I think a lot of people don't think Taylor Swift herself is in on the joke that she's melodramatic. But she definitely is. She even said it. She's like, "Yeah, I love you to in real life." That's super over dramatic, and there's so much melodrama in that.
I do
But
love that.
that's the fun part. Like, that's the whole point.
I will say, so the other interpretation I've heard, so in
Yeah.
this podcast, we can have multiple interpretations. No one's gonna be mad.
Mhm.
So I've so in this and so other
I might be
interpretations.
there. No, I'm just kidding.
Another interpretation
If you don't agree with me,
I heard is this the speaker or Taylor, right, is talking to is living in an alternate reality where she and Joseph are together. He's the one that's cheating on her, and she's
Mhm.
actually speaking to Matthew, and saying, and it's I guess it's less of like a intro to the album and more like the overview of the album, where they
Mhm.
said that they think she's talking to Matthew and saying, "I touched you. It's ruining my life for only a fortnight," and that's why they say the fortnight is like a little bit shorter. Um,
Mhm.
and then at the end, she runs away, and and even actually goes back to Matthew, in this theory, so that they and then tumbles down from there. So I've seen that too.
I mean, I think that's interesting. Um, I'm struggling to buy it.
Yeah, and
Only,
that's
but
okay.
only because the only reason I'm like properly struggling to buy that is because we know how she refers to him later in the song. Like later on, by the end, like I don't know, like yeah. I'm just like, but I think that's an interesting insight.
Yeah,
Interesting. It's an interesting take.
yeah, yeah. No, so yeah. So I'll
That's
just
all. I think it's interesting.
yeah. No, so no. So that's for me too. I think that's part of the thing that I was going back and forth in my head is like, is this, um, because if you so we'll just run through this. I'll run through this really quickly through the stanzas, right? Um, because we also know that Matthew did not stay with her. There was treason there too, and then they were, and then maybe, and then they, like I said, they were just touched for a fortnight, and now he's moved on, and he's like, with his beautiful wife who waters flowers and has a nice garden, and she's stuck with in this loveless alcoholic marriage with Joseph. Again, hypothetical, all hypothetical, and then is willing to at the end be like, "Fuck it, I don't want to be in this scenario where I'd rather try this thing with you, even if it's crazy."
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Now, hold on. I think that's interesting. Um, but I think that she's not running away with anyone. Only
Mm.
because Post Malone is like, you'll move to Florida. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to move to Florida by myself, buy the car I wanted. I'm going to move to Florida. And then when she says, buy the car you want, she's like, I bought the car that you wanted, but it's for me. Um, but I know it's not going to start up. And the act of it's not going to start up to like touch you, to touch me, implies to me that she's alone in Florida or by herself. But circling back, I want to go back to this. I was a functioning alcoholic till nobody noticed my new aesthetic
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because and let me pull it from the singer and let's add in some contextual information. If you read Taylor's Time magazine interview,
Right.
when she was talking about how she prepared for the Eras tour, she very specifically mentioned that she stopped drinking alcohol for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's interesting. Because like I just think that interesting. Alcohol as a representation for love, alcohol um as something to be dependent upon is actually something that comes up a lot in Taylor's music and has been coming up since Reputation. And if we want to go further back, technically it was in 1989. She just hit it and then she brought it back.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but she just self-editorialized. But their Reputation is kind of soaked in alcohol. Like
Yeah.
it's all over. all over that album, and it's all over the Lover album, and then it just continues on. So I think it's very interesting for the lyric to be, I was a functioning alcoholic, but nobody noticed I stopped drinking. Or they didn't know that became a new part of me became not alcohol. So I think that's interesting to know. I think it's interesting to know. It's interesting to know that she stopped drinking before she tore down the whole sky, in her words.
Yeah. From the summation.
Yeah, from the poem.
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting. It's an interesting line. It's interesting insight. Specifically, I think it's. I keep saying interesting, and I'm making myself sick. But especially because it's just like, no, yeah, you were functioning like you had to, a functioning alcoholic is someone who is like, is what, 3 drinks a day, a week, a day?
Oh gosh, now I'm not sure. But yeah, it's like it's enough where like once you start counting them up, it seems like a lot, but then in the daily, you're like, oh, it's just like a drink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, let me look it up because this is gonna bother me. Not help is available. It's just okay. It's who is dependent on alcohol, but is still able to function relatively effectively in their daily life. So she was like,
"Hold on, my gardener's back."
So,
do you hear him?
A little bit.
Okay, if you can't hear him, we can keep going.
Yeah, but it is. I think it's just interesting, those 4 opening lines of, I was supposed to be sent away. They never came and got me to take me away. Because they never came and got me, I was an alcoholic, and I changed it myself. They didn't take me away. But I was supposed to be. They were supposed to take me.
Do you think that do you think I was a functioning alcoholic until nobody noticed my new aesthetic? Like, I know we kind of said it's like do you think the alcoholicness ended and nobody noticed, or do you think it's more like I was an alcoholic and nobody noticed? I guess the till makes it.
I think till means it ended, and it gives me it's past tense, so I was until nobody noticed I changed. It's an interesting line. I was a functioning alcoholic until nobody noticed my new aesthetic. She was a functioning alcoholic until people didn't realize that she was functioning alcoholic.
Yeah, is it more like that?
They didn't realize.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Okay,
it was like her new aesthetic was being a functioning alcoholic, but nobody even noticed to care about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Ooh.
That's interesting. To be like, I had to cope with alcohol and nobody even noticed. So then she stopped.
Yeah, I mean, she had to stop it herself. No one helped her.
Yeah, she was just no one helped her.
Yeah.
Nobody noticed that being a functioning alcoholic was her new aesthetic, and she had to come to her own senses.
Yeah.
And change. And again, I'm also really stuck on the no one's here to blame, but what about your quiet treason? It's like, okay, no one's here. And that calls back to what Taylor herself posted about the album when it came out. She's like, and nobody's to blame. You don't need to go after anybody.
Yeah, I definitely feel like this might be one of those, like, shake up the 2 boys and, like, take a shot. Like, there's treason on both sides.
Yeah, yeah. And I also feel like sometimes Taylor will say something, and this is, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this where I'm not like, Taylor is lying. But she's like, a lot of these wounds were self-inflicted, and then you get in the songs, and she songs like Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, she's like, you deserve prison.
Yeah.
So, and part of me, and Taylor will do this thing where we know this from how she edits things. Like how she edited 1989. Specifically 1989, because if Is It Over Now had come out back then, there would have been a witch hunt. And she knows this.
Yeah.
And I think it's also, do you remember when she sang Dear John?
Yes.
Tour?
It was in Minneapolis because my friend was there.
Yeah. And she said, I don't care what you think anybody did to me at 19. And it's like, now, Miss Taylor, because Taylor, you wrote woulda, coulda, shoulda about being 19.
Yeah.
But then you also have to remember that, and this is something that comes with writing creative nonfiction, and it's a rule. When you're writing, because you're writing about your life, obviously, you're doing autobiography. You sometimes you have to change names, but sometimes you have to preface things so you do not get sued and or attacked.
Yeah,
And
you don't want to
sometimes
cause more drama.
like sometimes you are like one of my teachers was like, there are things she won't write about until people pass away,
Yeah.
because she still cares about them,
Yeah.
and she wants to protect them. And
Yeah.
I have things I probably will never write about these to be published until like people die.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
like I don't want. So I do get, for a lot of things, I get the idea that Taylor is protecting things, and she's not telling everything she could, obviously. She's not. And I think that is a function of, one, she's just a good human being, and two, uh it's a function of being a good human being, and also a function of like self-preservation at times.
Yeah.
And I bring up the Dear John thing because I distinctly remember when that song first came out, there were crazy emails that were sent to Taylor. And I'm not making this up. Hannah, do you remember this?
No?
I feel like I'm not. Okay, hold on. I'm not making this up. I know I'm not making this up.
Wait, say it again so that I can.
When Dear John first came out, the "You're So Vain" dude, you think this song's about you? He was like, I remember he went to the press and was like, her writing is sloppy, blah blah, like that's not fair.
I don't remember that, but I believe you.
This happened, and we also know Taylor had mentioned that an ex has filled her inbox.
Say that again.
She's mentioned that an ex has filled her inbox.
Oh.
So all this to say, I think it's interesting for her to tell us like no one's to blame, and it's interesting because one, it does sometimes feel like she's like curtailing people.
Yeah.
To be like, hey, go after these people, leave them alone, and also to be like, hey, don't do that. Okay, because you remember when All Too Well 10-minute version came out, the red scarves were everywhere, and a lot of newspapers were like judging Taylor for like, they're like, she just put this back out so she can get another hit in on Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
And so for me, when she came out with Speak Now, I was like, it's obviously she is saying this to, one, get ahead of the media who are like, she's just doing it to get back at him again.
Yeah.
And to prevent like anyone from saying anything. It felt like she was protecting herself. And here I see her like, one, she's like, the only person she can speak for truly is herself. So she's like, some of it was self-inflicted. A lot of it was self-inflicted. But there was a lot of things that she's like, the only thing she can do is speak her truth.
Right.
And I feel like some people can't, even though he's apparently such a great songwriter, he could. LOL. But
yeah,
she's like, perhaps she wants to protect people from, like, she's not going to tell all business for people who cannot hit back if they wanted to.
Yeah. Hold on. Okay, so I do think that, when we are looking at this song and, the way that she may be even being protective or the way that she's trying to obfuscate some things, I think that just makes it a more interesting song, right? Like,
it does.
We get to see, we don't have to obsess so much about who is what or what is what. I think one of the main themes we talked about in our first episode is that 100% these songs are about Taylor, right? And how she feels. Yeah.
It's Taylor's album that Taylor wrote, that she is complete and total. And Taylor herself is like expressing her agency in all of it.
Exactly. And so I think it's so important. Fine. Yeah, it's so important that we remember that the feeling we should come out of this is not like, oh, he did that, she did, or he did that, he did that. It should be how did she feel? How did she react? And I think that's kind of setting us up for the rest of the album, where
Yeah.
because whoever caused it or both caused it, whatever, like she felt trapped, whether it's from this fling or whether it's from this long-term relationship. She did have this connection with people that she thought were real, that she thought were necessary. She did want to escape and get out of here, with all these feelings swirling, whirling inside her head. And the consequence and the growth and all of that is the rest of the album. And I think that's so powerful and beautiful ultimately.
It's such a good overture for it. Like, it's such,
What a good word.
I know, it's such a good, again, it's such a good, like, opening. Um, wow, it really is such a good opening.
And I like that word, actually, overture, that you use, because in an actual overture, it basically is a condensed version of all the main motifs of a song, of the symphony or musical even, that's going to come back. And when you first hear it, you have no idea what the fuck is happening. You're like, I don't understand these motifs. You don't even know how they're going to come back. But it's in your mind. It's been planted by the composer, by the writer. And so when it does come back, you're like, wait, oh, like this was introduced. This is not just coming out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
All these feelings from Down Bad to So Long London, they're all in here.
Mm-hmm. To Clara Bow as well.
Yeah.
And then once you, and this is a musical, like once you finish it and you watch the musical again, then you start to recognize, you're like, I know that theme.
Yeah.
That's the villain's theme. That's the hero's theme.
Exactly. Right. Star Wars does it. Hamilton does it. Right. Like they all do it.
And I also think it is very interesting to me. Taylor is functioning in this gray area the whole album, including like the main cover. It's like we have the white outline, but she's in gray. Like there's maybe white, but she's like in this super firm square of gray.
Yeah.
Like we're working in shades of gray here. And that's why it's probably like, and no one's here to blame. No one's here to blame. Like in totality, no one's here to blame. But things were done to me.
Yeah.
That were treason.
Yeah.
And I did things. I took a drug. I did all these things as well. Like there are things I did. There are compulsions I had that were bad. I want to kill her is illegal. It's
very.
I don't even know. It's illegal. But but you guys can see the face Hannah just made. But yeah, no, like I want to kill her is very illegal. So she's like, I had negative compulsions. I took a drug. I chose to touch you.
Yeah.
I made that active, like these are a lot of active decisions she's making, and the act of her, like, again, I am just so very proud of how much agency and how much even like responsibility she takes for herself. And that's why I'm like, I don't understand, and I feel like we have talked about this. These, like, people are always talking about Taylor's supposed victimhood or whatever. But the thing is, she, first of all, that a lot of that came up with her victimhood. Like, it started when she was a teenager. She was a child. Let's start there. But at least by like in the Tortured Poets department, she is a very active role.
Yeah.
And she, even when she's like, and we'll get to it in like Guilty as Sin, where she didn't necessarily do anything, quote unquote, but she did do something, and it made her, and a lot of it is all very like her emotion. This is Taylor's album. If you want to hear somebody else's side, tell them to write their own music. I don't care about anybody else. If we're being 100% real, I don't care what anybody else thinks. I don't care about the muses. Like, they can say what they want. They can yada yada. I do not care at all.
Yeah.
At all. Not in the slightest. I'm here for Taylor's album and Taylor's point of view. And
Taylor's version.
This is the house that... Exactly. Literally Taylor's version. I want to see the world as filtered through Taylor's perspective. With the musical choices she picks, because the sound of this is very like drugged atmospherally.
Yeah. We barely touched on the production, but no worries. We're here for a little more. We're more on the lyric side. I'm sure there's people.
Taylor guided Jack in doing exactly what she wanted.
Yeah.
What I am interested to know, like, I am very interested to know, like, how Post Malone added to lyrics because he it does have lyric credits.
Yeah.
So I want to
Maybe we'll
know,
find
like,
out
what did
soon.
he add?
Yeah.
Hopefully, I want to get behind the song. Taylor, please, Taylor, Zane Lowe, pick up the phone.
I
Please
know.
pick up the
Well, on that
phone.
plea, we will be back again in a week to talk about the title track, "The Tortured Poets
Yes.
Department." We will be dissecting that next.
Taylor,
So, again, sorry about the gardener. I can see from like the squiggly lines that you can definitely hear it a little, at least. But we hope you enjoyed. And again, these are our interpretations. There's tons of others out there. And again,
there's no one that is 100% correct,
yes, and
but
this
I'd
is
also like to say I am never wrong and I am always right.
I that
I'm
is
never wrong.
okay, true, but for me, I'm a lot more loosey goosey, and yeah. And so if you have your own opinions, we'd love to. You can always reply, and yeah. And so we're excited to talk to you
There's
guys.
no one correct thing
Yeah.
unless it's something I say.
Well,
One is
and
correct.
also
But
like we've shared, Taylor has purposely made this a little more unclear. She's
yeah,
shaken up
she's
these two
being
men.
and as clear as she's making something, she's also not.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. The art of the red herring is very interesting. Even when she's being obvious, she's also saying something else. Like there's so many.
Oh, we have 30 more songs to talk about that, Exquisite. Don't you
I know,
worry.
right?
All right. Well, thank you so much again. See you guys next week.